The crimson dust of Epsilon 7 swirled around J. Park's combat boots, painting a desolate landscape of complete isolation. His advanced exosuit flickered with dying energy, sparks dancing across its fractured surface, a testament to the brutal mission that had gone catastrophically wrong. Each step he took felt heavy, not just from the suit's damaged systems but from the weight of being the sole survivor. Jay scanned the alien terrain, his trained eyes moving methodically across the crystalline plains. Jagged rock formations jutted, like broken teeth against a pale lavender sky, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper forgotten stories of destruction. His communication systems were dead, his emergency beacon silent. Survival was now his only mission. The Lyrian observation towers, delicate structures of intricate geometric designs, tracked his every movement. Hidden within those transparent walls, researchers and administrators watched the human with a mixture of terror and fascination. Jay knew he looked alien to them, a muscular, battle-hardened figure moving with predatory precision across their pristine world. Inside the central research complex, Hyun, a lead Lyrian researcher, adjusted her scanning equipment. Her translucent skin carried a soft blue luminescence that pulsed with nervous energy. Humans were more than just stories to her species now. This lone warrior represented an unknown variable in their carefully calculated existence. "He's moving towards the northern crystal fields," Hyun muttered to her assistant, her delicate fingers dancing across holographic displays. His energy signature suggests severe equipment damage, yet he moves with purpose. Jay's survival training kicked in automatically. Water would be his first priority. The exosuit's internal systems were failing, but its environmental analysis module still functioned. Moisture readings indicated potential underground water sources near the crystal formations ahead. As he approached the towering crystal structures, each step crunched against the rocky terrain. The crystals seemed to shimmer with an internal light, reflecting and refracting the weak sunlight in mesmerizing patterns. To the Lyrian, these were sacred scientific monuments. To Jay, they were potential cover and resources. His combat knife, still secured in its magnetic holster, represented his last true weapon. The rifle had been lost during the initial crash, scattered somewhere in the vast alien landscape behind him. But Jay Park was not just a soldier, he was a survivor. The Lyrian researchers continued their careful observation. They had never encountered a human this closely before. His movements were deliberate, each action calculated. Unlike their own species, built for intellectual pursuits and scientific exploration, this human radiated a raw physical potential for survival. Hyun noticed something peculiar. Despite obvious injuries and equipment failure, the human showed no signs of panic. His breathing remained steady, his movements precise. This was not just survival. This was adaptation. A sudden wind swept across the crystal plains, carrying fine red dust that danced around Jay's damaged suit. He paused, using the moment to assess his surroundings. The suit's remaining sensors provided minimal information. Temperature, basic atmospheric composition, potential radiation levels. Minimal. Oxygen variance, he muttered to himself. A habit developed during years of solo reconnaissance missions. Gravity slightly lower than Earth standard. Potential for sustainable environment. The Lyrian observation team recorded every moment. They had spent centuries studying galactic life forms, but this human represented something entirely different. Not just a species, but a concept of survival that defied their understanding. As the pale lavender sky began to darken, Jay Park continued his methodical exploration. One step at a time, one breath at a time, he transformed from a stranded soldier into something more, a potential bridge between two completely different civilizations. Hyun watched, her scientific curiosity growing with each passing moment. This was no ordinary encounter. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. The crystalline landscape absorbed his footsteps, silent witnesses to a story that was just beginning to unfold. The ground trembled with a deep, menacing rhythm that seemed to pulse through the crystal plains of Epsilon 7. Alarm signals erupted across the Lyrian communication networks, a chorus of electronic warnings that cut through the once peaceful research station. Something was coming, something massive and destructive. Jay Park felt the vibration first. His combat-trained body responded instantly, muscles tensing beneath the damaged exosuit. Years of battlefield experience had taught him to read the language of approaching danger. This was no natural phenomenon. This was an invasion. Massive biomechanical constructs burst from the underground tunnels, tearing through the delicate crystal formations like paper. The Vorax had arrived, a collective consciousness of destruction that had consumed countless civilizations across the galaxy. Their singular purpose was absolute, total planetary annihilation. Inside the Lyrian research complex, panic began to spread. Hyun's hands moved frantically across communication panels, her translucent skin now pale with fear. "Defensive systems are inadequate," she whispered, more to herself than to her terrified colleagues. Jay understood the situation immediately. The Lyrian were a scientific species, built for observation and understanding, not for combat. Their defensive technologies were sophisticated but passive, designed for protection, not warfare. Against the Vorax they were defenseless. Without waiting for permission, he began to move. The damaged exosuit might be failing, but his human adaptability was at its peak. He grabbed a communication device from a fallen Lyrian researcher, quickly adapting its frequency. "Concentrate energy fields here." He pointed to a holographic display, his finger tracing a strategic defensive line. The Lyrian researchers stared in shocked silence. No one had ever spoken to them with such direct authority. The first wave of Vorax attack vessels broke through the planet's outer atmospheric defenses. They were living machines, part organic, part mechanical, each one a nightmare of technological horror. Tentacle-like appendages reached out, ready to consume and destroy. Jay's broken communication device crackled to life. He began issuing commands, his voice cutting through the chaos with military precision. "Redirect secondary energy channels. Create overlapping defensive perimeters. Concentrate fire on primary attack vectors." Hyun watched in amazement. The human was transforming their passive scientific complex into something entirely different. A defensive position, a fighting chance. The Vorax seemed confused by the sudden resistance. They had encountered countless civilizations that simply surrendered. But here was something different. A strategic response they hadn't anticipated. Jay moved between Lyrian researchers, showing them how to modify their scientific equipment into makeshift defensive tools. A research laser became a precision weapon. A communication array transformed into a jamming device. Each piece of equipment found new purpose under his guidance. "We are not just defending," he told them, his voice calm but intense. "We are surviving." The first direct confrontation happened quickly. Vorax attack drones descended, their mechanical, bodies designed for total destruction. But instead of easy prey, they found a newly organized defense. Lyrian researchers, moments ago terrified, now operated modified equipment with surprising efficiency. Hyun watched in awe as Jay coordinated the defense. He was not just fighting. He was teaching, transforming a species from observers to defenders in moments of extreme pressure. The crystal plains outside became a battlefield. Vorax machines crashed against newly established energy barriers. The ground shook with explosions, but the defensive line held. As the first wave of attack subsided, a strange silence fell over the research complex. The Lyrian researchers looked at Jay with a mixture of fear, respect, and something else. Hope. Jay checked the modified communication device. The battle was far from over. But for the first time since landing on this alien world, he allowed himself a small smile. They had survived the first wave. Weeks passed on the crystal plains of Epsilon 7, and the Lyrian research complex transformed into something entirely unexpected. Jay Park moved between groups of alien defenders, his damaged exosuit now a symbol of survival and adaptation. The training was brutal and constant. Lyrian researchers, once comfortable in their laboratories, now learned the harsh realities of combat. Jay's methods were simple but effective. He broke complex military strategies into basic movements, turning scientific minds into tactical thinkers. Watch your angles, he would say, demonstrating how to position defensive equipment. Movement is life. Stay fluid. Stay alive. Hyun observed everything. Her scientific mind analyzed each training session, documenting the incredible transformation happening before her eyes. The Lyrian were changing, not just in their defensive capabilities, but in their entire approach to survival. Weapons that were once delicate research tools became modified combat instruments. Precision lasers were recalibrated for maximum defensive impact. Communication arrays became sophisticated early warning systems. Each piece of scientific equipment found a new purpose under Jay's guidance. The crystal plains outside the research complex became a training ground. Lyrian defenders practiced movement patterns, learned to coordinate their attacks, and understood the concept of tactical positioning. Their natural intelligence, once focused solely on research, now adapted to survival. Jay was relentless. He understood that survival wasn't just about physical strength. It was about mental adaptation. He taught them to think like warriors while maintaining their scientific approach. Intelligence is your greatest weapon, he would repeat. The Vorax watched from a distance, confused by the sudden change in the planet's defensive capabilities. What was once an easy target now presented an unexpected challenge. The collective consciousness of the Vorax struggled to understand this new development. Night training sessions became common. Under the pale lavender sky, Jay would take small groups of Lyrian defenders through complex scenarios. They learned to move silently, to communicate without sound, to understand the language of survival. Hyun noticed the changes in her fellow researchers. Their posture was different. Their eyes carried a new intensity. They were no longer just observers of the universe. They were becoming active participants in their own survival. The modified communication systems became a critical advantage. Jay taught them how to create false signals, how to confuse and misdirect potential attackers. The Lyrians' natural technological skills combined with human tactical thinking created something entirely new. We are not just defending, Jay would tell them during intense training sessions. We are proving that intelligence can be the most powerful weapon. The Vorax continued to probe their defenses, sending smaller attack waves to test the new defensive capabilities. Each time they were met with unexpected resistance. The Lyrian defenders, once passive, now responded with calculated precision. Weapons training was particularly challenging. The Lyrians' delicate physiology was not designed for traditional combat. Jay adapted, creating specialized equipment that worked with their natural strengths. Precision replaced brute force. As weeks turned into months, the research complex became a fortress. The crystal plains that were once a vulnerable landscape now bristled with sophisticated defensive technologies. The Lyrian had become something entirely new, a species prepared to fight for its survival. Hyun watched Jay during a quiet moment. He was checking equipment, his movements precise and calculated. She realized that he was more than just a survivor. He was a teacher. A transformation was happening, not just to their defensive capabilities but to their entire understanding of existence. The pale lavender sky seemed to hold a promise. The Vorax would return. But this time, they would find something completely unexpected. A planet of scientists had become a planet of defenders, and Jay Park had made it happen. The orbital platforms burned like dying stars against the darkness of space. Jay Park stood at the central command station, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching Vorax fleet. Months of preparation would now be tested in the most critical moment of their survival. Incoming primary attack wave. Hyun's voice was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos around them. The Lyrian defenders moved with a precision that would have been impossible weeks ago. Each member of the team understood their role perfectly. Jay's modified communication system crackled to life. He began issuing commands, his voice cutting through the tension. Redirect secondary energy channels. Concentrate fire on lead attack vectors. Remember your training. The first wave of Vorax ships approached, their biomechanical bodies twisting, like nightmares against the crystal-clear space. These were not simple attack vessels. They were living weapons, each one a part of the collective consciousness that had consumed entire civilizations. But the Lyrian defenders were no longer the same passive species they had been months ago. Modified research equipment now served as precision weapons. Communication arrays became sophisticated jamming systems. Every piece of scientific technology found a new, deadly purpose. Jay moved between command stations, his damaged exosuit, a testament to their journey. He was no longer just a survivor. He was the architect of their resistance. The Vorax Collective had never encountered a defense like this before. Orbital platforms erupted with coordinated energy bursts. The Lyrian scientific precision combined with human tactical thinking created a defense that was both beautiful and terrifying. Each attack was met with a calculated response. Target their communication nodes, Jay instructed, his fingers dancing, across modified control panels. The Vorax relied on their collective consciousness. Break that and the entire attack would collapse. Hyun watched in awe as their modified systems began to penetrate the Vorax's collective network. Their scientific understanding combined with Jay's tactical training was creating something unprecedented. They weren't just defending, they were fighting back. The battle raged across multiple orbital platforms. Vorax attack vessels twisted and turned, trying to find a weakness in their defenses. But the Lyrian defenders held their ground, each movement precise, each action calculated. Jay's understanding of collective intelligence systems allowed for tactics the Vorax couldn't anticipate. He identified critical communication nodes, creating cascading failures in their attack strategy. One by one, Vorax communication systems began to collapse. "We're breaking through their primary defense network," Hyun reported, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and pure survival instinct. The research complex had become a war room, their scientific equipment transformed into weapons of survival. The space around Epsilon 7 became a canvas of destruction and hope. Vorax vessels exploded in brilliant displays of energy, their collective consciousness unable to comprehend the resistance they faced. Each destroyed ship was a victory for a species that had once been nothing more than passive observers. Jay remained focused, his tactical mind working at maximum efficiency. He understood that this was more than just a battle. This was a transformation. The Lyrian were proving that intelligence could be the most powerful weapon in the universe. Hours passed. The Vorax attack waves continued, but with decreasing intensity. Their collective consciousness was being systematically dismantled, their attack strategy falling apart under the precise, calculated defense of the Lyrian defenders. As the final Vorax communication nodes collapsed, a strange silence fell over the orbital platforms. Jay looked at Hyun, a moment of understanding passing between them. They had done more than survive. They had changed everything. The crystal plains of Epsilon 7 had become a battlefield. The Lyrian had become warriors, and Jay Park had been the catalyst of their transformation. The crystal plains lay quiet, silent witnesses to a battle that had transformed an entire civilization. Jay Park stood amid the ruins, his damaged exosuit a memorial to their impossible victory. Smoke drifted lazily across the landscape, mixing with the pale lavender sky. Un, the grand administrator of the Lyrian civilization, approached slowly. Her movements were different now, no longer the hesitant steps of a researcher, but the confident stride of a leader forged in battle. "You have saved not just a planet," she said, "but an entire civilization." Jay simply nodded. Words seemed unnecessary after what they had experienced together. The Lyrian research complex, once a place of quiet scientific observation, now stood as a fortress. Defensive systems that had been laboratory experiments now protected their entire world. Hyun stood nearby, her data collection devices still recording. She had documented every moment of their transformation, from first contact to final victory. The scientific records would become a testament to their survival, a story that would be studied for generations. The Lyrian people looked at Jay differently now. Where once they saw a dangerous outsider, they now saw a protector. Children who had hidden during the first Vorax attacks now played games mimicking his battle tactics. Their drawings decorated public spaces, a human soldier standing tall against impossible odds. Jay knew his time on Epsilon 7 was coming to an end. Survival had always been about moving forward, about finding the next challenge. The Lyrian had learned to defend themselves. They no longer needed him. Yoon presented him with an honor, a crystal medallion crafted from the same material as their sacred research monuments. "You have changed us," she said. "Not just our defenses, but our understanding of what it means to survive." The transformation was complete. The Lyrian were no longer just observers of the universe. They had become active participants, warriors who understood that intelligence and adaptation were the true keys to survival. Preparations began for Jay's departure. A small research vessel would take him to the nearest human outpost. But everyone knew he would not stay still for long. There were other worlds, other challenges. During his final training session, Jay gathered the new Lyrian defenders. "Remember," he told them, "survival is not about strength. It's about adaptability, about learning, about never giving up." The Lyrian researchers, now defenders, listened intently. They had learned more than just combat tactics. They had learned a new way of thinking about their place in the universe. As the departure day arrived, the entire population gathered. What was once a fearful group of researchers now stood as a united, confident civilization. Jay walked through the crowd, feeling their respect, their gratitude. Hyun approached him one last time. "Where will you go?" she asked, her scientific curiosity still burning bright. Jay smiled, a rare occurrence. "Wherever there's a frontier that needs protecting," he responded, the small research vessel prepared for launch. Epsilon 7's sky seemed different now, no longer a passive backdrop, but a canvas of possibility. The Lyrian had learned that the universe was not something to be merely observed, but something to be engaged with. As the ship lifted off, the Lyrian defenders watched. They were no longer the same species that had cowered before the first Vorax attack. They were something new, something stronger. A monument would be erected in the central research complex. It would depict a lone human soldier, a symbol of unexpected heroism, of the power of adaptation, of survival against impossible odds. Jay Park looked back at the planet one last time. Another frontier awaited. Another world might need protection. Another civilization might need to learn the lessons of survival. The universe was vast, and he was ready,